Good morning on behalf of the National CSR Network. This is one more in our series of interviews with CSR and sustainability leaders in the country. And today's conversation is going to be very, very enriching and interesting for two reasons. One is the person herself whom we have here today. This is Kanika, who currently heads community investments and sustainability programs for Unilever South Asia. Kanika is a very accomplished, award-winning CSR and sustainability professional. She is one of the few people I know who has a master's in CSR. So I think we'll be able to get a very good insight into how and what things are. And she's currently also pursuing an advanced management in public policy at the Indian School of Business. Kanika is the founder of Solutions for Clean and Healthy Environment, or the SOCH Foundation, which aims to influence behavior change for a cleaner planet. She is a TED speaker. She is awarded Asia's Top Sustainability Superwoman 2020. Wow, Kanika. She is a recipient of Most Influential Sustainability Leader, a Woman Novator. Now, I hope I got that right. She is a lead fellow. Many kudos to her CV. So it's absolutely fascinating and going to be very enriching for us, Kanika. So that's the first reason why today's conversation is going to be interesting. The second reason is that Kanika is, as I said, a part of Unilever, a multinational company which has a very strong core of sustainability. For Unilever internationally, sustainability is not an add-on or an afterthought. It is at the very core of their business. And it would be very interesting for us to learn how this kind of multinational or international focus then translates into countries and regions, and how it's actually operationalized in the context of a country like India, which has its own, frameworks for some of these things. Right. So for both of these things, I think this is going to be a fascinating conversation. So welcome, Kanika.
Thank you so much, Meena. And having somebody like yourself who's a stalwart, I think being interviewed by you itself is a humbling experience. So thank you so much for having me, as well as National CSR Network for this wonderful opportunity.
Great, Kanika. Yeah, it's really lovely. So Kanika, first of all, I mean, you are called Head of Community Investments and Sustainability Programs. Yes. Now, that's an unusual kind of designation for somebody in the CSR space. So maybe you could just start by telling us, what is the scope of your work? What do you actually do? Yeah.
Sure. So, like you rightly started off with Unilever's commitment towards sustainability and responsibility. In Unilever, this is not an add-on. It's very much integrated in the business. For example, we don't have a separate CSR department. Whatever we do is within the make of the business, and globally we are guided by a strategy called the Compass. And Compass very clearly articulates our social and environmental commitments that across the globe, all businesses are trying to fulfill. Now, under that comes a flagship program of Hindustan Unilever called Prabhat, which is the Sustainable Inclusive Community Development Initiative that looks at communities holistically. So wherever we have our operations, whichever community is there as a very important stakeholder, we look at the problems of the community from a bottom-up approach, and then we try to marry it with our own goals under the Compass, priorities that the business would have, priorities that the state would have, and then align it with national and international goals as well, such that we deliver meaningful programs, not just for the community, but as much as possible integrated back to the business as well. So for me, I think, unlike a lot of other organizations where a CSR department or a CSR head would be purely looking at community programs or CSR programs which are happening in the community, for me, with my team, we are constantly looking at what brings in true value for our stakeholder, the community, and at the same time, how how is it that it benefits the business and becomes a win-win situation for both of them? Because I think ultimately we all are feeding off each other, and if we are growing, we want to grow with our communities benefiting along with us. At the same time, if the communities benefit, obviously, conversely, our business would grow. The consumption would be higher. The products that we put out there under the sustainability and responsibility lens, their demand would be much higher. So it's a win-win situation for all. So therefore, my designation of being community investments and sustainability program, because it's absolutely integrated. It is not a one-off of how to spend that 2% profit. It is really about how do we make us communities around our sites sustainable. Also, because I would just like to bring this to the attention of all the listeners that Unilever is in the business of making sustainable living commonplace. That's the purpose of the business. And that very clearly through Prabhat extends to the communities as well.
Fantastic. So when you talk about win-wins for the community and the business, are there some examples you can share of what you mean by that? Because that is, we do all try for that. But, since yours is very integrated into the core of the business, we'd really like to understand how you bring this about.
Sure. I think first I'll just take a step back, Meena, and I'll just put in, the thematic areas where Prabhat is functioning. So, we use a very beautiful mural in Prabhat, which for us is the ecosystem of Prabhat. So in any community, we are working on broadly 4 thematic areas. So there's economic empowerment and education, there's environmental sustainability, and then there is, health and nutrition. And in each of these thematic areas, we have subsections of the work that we do. For example, under economic empowerment, we work on both farm sector and non-farm sector. We are trying to develop skills of people along with working with agri value chains, because our factories are dotted across the rural landscape of India. And the pressing problems have to involve the agrarian communities, right? So economic empowerment, we deal with a lot of that, and therefore we try to see how we can create households that may be income surplus so that there is dispensable income in the hands of people tangibly. So there's a lot of important work that happens there. Then there's a body of work which we do with respect to environmental sustainability, which is again on 3 broad pillars. These are water conservation, waste management, and carbon neutrality. I think for us, it's very important that we look at all of this integratedly, because you cannot work on waste management if you're not also looking at how waste is impacting the waterways of the community, right? And conversely, you cannot work on water and trees and plantations if you're not addressing or capturing how much climate adaptation is it really leading to. And similarly, all of this also gets impacted by the livelihoods of people locally. So again, each of these pillars are feeding into each other. And from the environmental sustainability perspective, in community, we are driving the goals of water positive, zero waste to landfill, and carbon neutral communities. And finally, on health and nutrition, our goal is to provide basic good quality access to communities for healthcare and nutrition. And under that, we have, for health, we have our telemedicine services. So we have telemedicine centers running, and we have Prabhat Swasthya Seva, which we recently started in response to COVID especially. And we have a flagship program called Prabhat Poshan Saathi, which comes under nutrition. Now, all of this for us is finally what is building the communities holistically and contributing to what is really tangible and important for the community. Now, how does this link back to business? So under economic empowerment in 2018, we started a pilot project called Project Move, which was meant for dairy farmers of Punjab. And we realized that by using data analytics and an application called Move, which is developed by a partner called Move Farms, we were able to help the dairy farmer understand how they can bring down their expenses of the cattle, have a vet and horticulture experts go and visit physically and give timely information and expertise, such that the output of the cattle increased by just tweaking certain age-old practices which were not really having a favorable impact on the productivity and yield of the cattle. So simply, sunlight needs to come in, they should not cover the water which is being fed to the cattle, when should the vaccination happen, what to do when mastitis happens, stuff like that. So there's a lot of hand-holding that happened there. And subsequently, this was not a part of the plan, but subsequently when we acquired GSK nutrition business, we realized also that some of our products need milk as an input ingredient.
Okay.
And by then, by 2021-22, some of the farmers that we were working in 2018 had already built their capacities that they could become a part of a supply chain.
Suppliers. Oh, wow.
And any which ways we were working towards having them, become suppliers and come to the level that they can become suppliers to major milk brands in the region. But see how it benefited us as well. Simply because I didn't go there with a livelihood center giving tailoring classes to people. I did in Punjab what was needed in Punjab, which is that dairy farming can be a very important allied activity for farming community, and it is. Just that it needed to be built in a manner that can be sustainable and a win-win situation for the community and the businesses. So the aspiration for us was not that 2,000 rupees se, let's increase their income. Our aspiration always was that let's build the capacity such that they can grow substantially and become a part of the dominant milk supply economy in the region. Now, how that ended up benefiting us as well in the long run, it's a classic case of when you look at communities and building their aspiration and capacities to a level that they can become a part of the formal economy, that can become a clear-cut win-win situation for the business as well as, people in the ecosystem. And today, we have a procurement team who already deals with a lot of milk pourers. How, the benefit of something like Project Moo, and because Moo Farms is a social enterprise, this is how we're unlocking the potential of social economy also, because now Moo Farm is also directly partnering with our procurement team, so that with our milk pourers who are already part of the business, we can have substantial increase in certain other environmental and social indicators as well. So I think this is an example that I would want to leave with everybody, that, when we design programs also for us, the aspiration level is very high. And therefore, we try to see how it can benefit both the community as well as businesses.
Wonderful example, which, leads me on to ask you, how do you actually go through this whole process?
Right.
Of planning your, or even setting your aspirations, as you say, making sure it's contextually the right thing to do, and then go on? And do you work with partners, and what's the scope and size and scale? Some idea of that.
Right. So Prabhat is spread across 21 states and 2 union territories, Meena, and for us, the starting point is the very base. This is a team of professionals whose ears are, I think, very, very close to the ground. I think if for example, my team doesn't go on the ground for a few days, especially during COVID, they just start having withdrawal symptoms. So, for us as a team, and by virtue of our choice of partners also, we like people who are very grounded. And therefore, the starting point for us is identifying clearly what is the needs of the community and articulating that. Post that, on the 4 thematic areas that I mentioned to you, we understand what is the scope and which priorities would be relevant for that region. Then we scout out for partners who may be experts on that particular subject. And then the design of the program, Prabhat has its own design and methodology of programs. And I think we pride ourselves in adding a local flavor to everything that we do. So the same project Moo in Punjab would be different compared to UP. In UP, in Punjab, we were looking at the value chain of milk. In UP, because of the difference in the understanding and the cultural context of the region. It was more about value-added products, so paneer, ghee, and intertrading locally within the community. Okay. Which also then had an impact on the nutritional intake in the community. You know, a community whose cattle so far was not producing enough milk. वो 8 लीटर देती थी, आज वो 3 लीटर दे रही है, 2 लीटर एक्स्ट्रा से आप घी बना रहे हैं. That ghee is being consumed by self and being traded amongst women in the community. You know, so very, very localized context. And I think this is also because Women's Day is coming, I want to, you know, I want our listeners to also visualize. Imagine in rural UP around Sumerpur, Hamirpur district, imagine a woman who so far did not have the means to give high nutrition content, you know, nutrition food to her family or the male member of the family for that matter. Now today, because she's doing that, just imagine when she is making rotis on that chula, she puts a dollop of ghee and gives it to her child, her grandchildren. We have success stories, Meena, where the grandmother is now, because of the kind of income that she's earning, she is funding the education of her grandson and grandchildren. Wow. Now the grandmother, imagine. So
two stereotypes or two barriers. One is the woman and one is the age, you know, because society is both anti-woman and anti-age. So this is beautiful.
Exactly. And we are talking of patriarchal societies, you know. So for us, within that, the construct getting shattered. So these are not just stories for us. These are life-changing moments for me and my, you know, for me and my teams. And therefore, the choice of partner, Meena, for us becomes very important. So I'll give you another example. Within the economic empowerment, when COVID happened, and we had, you know, we have 17 livelihood centers running in the country. These livelihood centers, like I said, provide skill development as well as agri-value chain work. And Project Move is part of the dairy agri-value chain. Now, on the skill development, tailoring is a wish. It's something that
desired.
Yeah, it's their desire. But how do you give them income in their hands? Now, we made sure that our trained beneficiaries in COVID, about 60 of them, made masks for which we gave order in our ecosystem. And we had women earn lakhs of rupees because of that. Right. Now, again, this is a business connect, because normally what happens is you place order outside for mask, and that's what it is. CSR does what it does, and fulfillment never happens through CSR. But for us, this is not about, and we pay them what is the market rate. You know, there is no negotiation. So women's skill building, we do that. And then for them to become entrepreneurs and get that entrepreneurial sense, we help them to hone those skill sets so that, you know, they go back and take pride in what they've done. So the process, coming back to the process, I think the process for us very clearly is need assessment, design of the program, identification of the right partner, and having an NGO or a social enterprise become a partner in the long-term journey of the goals that we have for our communities across Prabhat.
Right. No, perfectly logical sequence. Where does, you know, with this increasing kind of focus on evaluation and impact assessment,
yes,
how does that fit into your cycle? How does it close the loop?
Right. So when we start a program, we start with a baseline. So I'll give you an example of another program of ours, which is on nutrition called Prabhat Poshan Sathi. Now, Prabhat Poshan Sathi is again all about budding rural women in their nutrition journey. The focus started with pregnant and lactating women, but we realized very early on that you need to target the life cycle of a woman and not just pregnant. And because it cannot just suddenly happen during pregnancy and lactation that you say, now nutrition is this. You have to start when she's an adolescent and maybe when the child is under 5. So, you know, I mean, it's like a loop.
Long cycle, yeah.
Yeah. So for us, we build a cadre of women who are these outreach workers that we call Prabhat Poshan Sathi, and they align with the National Nutrition Mission. The content is taken from the Government of India's, you know, content along with UNICEF and our own nutrition R&D team, you know, inputs on the content to make sure that it is technically absolutely sound. And
so the business HUL
yes, okay. Yes. And Again, we have modules which are specific. So adolescent girl child, there will be also focus on menstrual hygiene. We'll build in the concepts of how hygiene and hand washing and sanitation is very important. When the woman has a periods, for example, because that has a bearing on the childbirth later on as well. Then we talk about nutrition and nutri gardens and engage these adolescent girl children in the concept of nutri garden creation. We talk to general women, and then we come to, when the woman is pregnant and she's lactating, and then the child, when child is under 5, the mother. Now, in all of this, it started as advocacy, but because we realized that it is about behavior change, so nutri gardens play a very important role. Demonstration of nutritious recipes and myth busting plays a very, very important role. So all of this, and also licensing with the government such that we engage the ashas and the anganwadis and the ANMs in a way that, the Poshan Sathis are their Sathi also in the government's mandate in the region. It's not a standalone or a parallel initiative. So we've seen, very interesting things like iron folic acid tablet consumption in the region grew by a couple of percentages because they were working in parallel, in tandem, in coordination with the ASHA worker. And therefore the ASHA worker couldn't go. If she couldn't go to every doorstep, the Poshan Sathi went and said, pregnancy mein isko lene ki ye fayde hain, paise karo. And we have a chart where we, sort of put in, and we have our own communication which goes in with all of that. So for us in this, when we designed the program, the baseline happened, and then post the baseline, how do you arrive at, for example, from an evaluation perspective, whether anemia and malnutrition has actually gone down? So I am also engaging with external experts while my baseline is happening, and subsequently midline would happen with biomarkers and anthropometric markers in the community for what is the anemia level, and at the midline, what is the anemia level, and 3 years down the line, end line, or 5 years down the line, what is the anemia level? Has it really gone down? I have an external partner who is actually looking at quantitative methodologies, which can evaluate whether what we are saying is correct or not, and become the technical partner with all my NGOs, partnering with us across the region to finally give us an assessment and evaluation that the program that you've designed and the program that you've delivered on these quantitative methodologies is actually showcasing correctly that anemia in the region has gone down by this much percentages. This is what your intervention has directly led to. There are other influences also that have come in that we can't discount, and therefore, give us a third party, assurance that yes, whatever work we are doing is completely tying in as per how we envisaged it. So I think for us, within the make of the program, constant monitoring and evaluation through third party is part of the design. And that
runs almost concurrent. It's a concurrent evaluation and not a kind of post factor, is it?
No, we have built-in evaluation currently in the process.
Okay. Yes. So there is an external partner who's always there overseeing, and you have mechanisms by which you can draw that feedback from time to time to tweak and then get the final answer.
Absolutely. And the same goes for our water projects. Water projects also, we have a third-party assurance, which is done, every year on the numbers that we are putting out. For our livelihood centers, we have a partner who audits our centers to see whether the quality is correct, random calling of our beneficiaries to make sure that what is being reported to us is actually of a certain stature. Is it being reported correctly or not? So we have a checks and balances for the criticality of different programs in terms of how we are evaluating the progress of the programs as well.
Absolutely. Very foundational level, built into the whole process.
Yes.
So it's not again an add-on or an afterthought.
No, it's not.
Kanika, one thing that is very interesting, how does the sustainability function on the one hand, the business on the other? What are the interactions? How does one influence the other? what are those feedback loops we generate? Because it's a complex kind of thing. And most corporates in India are not even looking at it yet that way, that, the social and the environmental or the sustainability function can actually feed into the business in a very different way.
Right. I think the classic example that I would give, which I think would apply to all businesses, is water. All of us consume water. What is the water footprint? So business would look at what is the water footprint of that particular factory or office or establishment, for example. And then we work with communities on bringing down the demand and increasing the supply of water, right? I think how much the business within its own functioning can save water, and how much water potential are we adding to the community, and that leading to water positivity or neutrality as a whole, for not just the business but for the community as well, is where the interaction comes in, Meena. And that while our businesses look at very clearly how they should proceed on their carbon journey, how they should proceed on their water journey, but with us being there, we are also looking at, while that is happening, how can we proceed on similar journeys in the community? So that constant interaction is very important, because the factory is part of the ecosystem, my community is part of the ecosystem, I have other influencers also in the ecosystem, and all have to be on board and all have to interact with each other. So we try to play that role in any region that we are operating, Meena, and we've had very clearly demonstrated instances where we have given back to the community much more than that's been drawn from the community. And the reason for that is because we have had the business linkage in the part of the design of the program from the start.
Is all this documented and easily available? Because these are the success stories that I think all of us need to learn from.
Right.
So where would all our viewers go and look for these stories?
Website, HUL website. That's it. One-stop shop, HUL website. You will find everything there.
Great. And of course, now they have a face to the name and they may connect with you for specific things.
Pleasure. Yeah.
One last thing. I mean, we talked about the interaction between your function and the business, but what about employee engagement? The business employees' engagement in the social and sustainability. This thing. Do you have a strong culture of that, and how do you operationalize it?
We have a very strong culture of that, Meena. I think for us post-COVID, one of the most relevant programs that we've run on, be it hand washing or Swachhata Ki Aadat in the community, was delivered by our employees from the shop floor. They became trained as Swachhata Doots, and they went to mohallas and anganwadis and schools and the general community to teach simple habits of hand washing and sanitation. And they have reached out to 4.5 million people. That is not a small number. This had been going on for years, and over the years, roughly about 5,000 of our employee volunteers have reached that number. We also had our staff, from factory who has gone into schools to teach them basics of nutrition. We have a module on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, where each number stands for something, like 2 is for 2 glasses of milk, so on and so forth, and 1 hour of physical. So basically on nutrition, we have a module, and again, our employee volunteers go to schools and teach children basic habits on nutrition, so that they can take back the message home, and they can engage with their own families to tell them that this is what I learned and this is what I understand now I should be engaging in, and therefore support parents when they say that do this and don't do that, and whatever it may be in their nutrition journey. So cumulatively for us, our employees have been a strength. For Prabhat, internal stakeholder, i.e. employees, and external stakeholder, i.e. community and the larger ecosystem of the business with the government machinery. I think we engage with all of them with equal vigor, and they become part of our journey. I think another point that I would like to make is that in COVID, we had massive outreach of COVID relief as part of our humanitarian relief work. We've reached out to more than, again, 2 million people with the relief work that we've done. Again, our employee volunteers were involved in it, along with our NGO partners. Of course, I take a lot of pride in the kind of partnerships that we have with our NGOs and our social enterprises, be it people from LaborNet, people from American India Foundation, our teams from Head Held High, our teams from Parmarth who work on water, teams from Bayaf, teams that work on waste management. Swayam, who, for example, is another social enterprise who we work with on waste management, and they've created prototypes, fantastic prototypes of cleaning the ghats of Ganga and using the plastic to make upcycle hand washing station. So one hand washing station is made from 75 kgs of plastic. And these hand washing stations in COVID were deployed in hospitals, police stations, general, utility areas for public. And it had a foot pedal because it was COVID. So, people didn't have to use the tap. They could just use the foot pedal for the water to come in. And again, here in all of these conversations, we talk to our brands as well, because brands have their social missions, right? And every brand in Unilever is working towards saving plastic. And therefore, Lifebuoy, for example, was a very critical brand for us, who partnered with us in conceptualizing this entire hand washing station. That's another business connect that Prabhat has and takes pride in, because for us, internal stakeholders are as critical as our external stakeholders. And again, employees have been involved in these activations, humanitarian relief, as well as the ongoing programmatic areas as well. So very, very important aspect of Prabhat.
Great. Absolutely fantastic conversation, Kanika. I think what you have really demonstrated is, how to not a nice word, facilitate win. The community wins, the environment wins, and the business wins. And right. I think that is the direction in this era of ESG. And, if we need to integrate CSR, which is kind of standing or falling on the periphery of things, if we need to integrate it into the business to change the way business works, I think you've shared the path, the way forward, and so many stories. I, for one, I have visited the website, but I'm going to now study it for an exam, because I think I learned a lot. And it's amazing to see your passion. And, I can now understand where all those awards come from and all those accolades.
You too,
Great going.
Thank you so
thank
much.
You. Thank you so much. And, it's been an amazing learning conversation for me.
Thank you, Meena. It's been a pleasure. Likewise. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Bye.